everyone. My name is Glenda with SureFit Designs. Sometimes I'm referred to as Glenda the Good Stitch. You know, not too long ago, I got an email from a customer asking how to work with her dress kit bodice and the waist fitting darts in relationship to her muffin top. And so I answered her back, and I'd like to share my answer with you in case this might be a situation that you are dealing with. First of all, what's a muffin top? Well, it's a situation where you are fuller above your waistline than what your waistline is. So when you're measuring yourself and you've put your narrow piece of elastic around your waist, like this, and now you're taking your measurements, and of course, one of the measurements that you're going to be doing is your shoulder over your apex and down to your waist elastic. Well, this fullness that you might have at your midriff is perhaps fuller than your waistline, but you've got to go over top of that and down to where you would actually want your waistline to sit, because otherwise your garment, your bodice isn't going to be long enough to cover up your midriff fullness. And so then as you measure your waist, you've got one dimension, and then you think to yourself, yes, but if I measure up here over top of my little muffin top, then I'm going to be bigger up here than I am down here. And how does that all work with the dart? Well, first of all, let me just say that I don't use that term muffin top to offend. That is what is so commonly used to refer to this extra fullness in the midriff area. And so you will hear me talking about it. And again, please don't be offended by my use of that terminology. So what do we do with the dress kit bodice when you do have this situation? Well, first of all, as we take a look at this bodice, I've just drawn one out very simply with, I assumed a 40-inch bust, a 30-inch waist, and a C-cup dart. And as you draw your bodice, you are going to end up, of course, with your bust-fitting dart and your waist-fitting dart. Now, this waist-fitting dart is simply not going to be that suitable for you when you have this more fullness above than what your waistline is. So you're not narrowing down like this whole pattern is doing. Well, it just means that for the most part, you're going to disregard the dart. However, for your initial muslin test that you sew, you have to do something with this dart. And here's a couple of suggestions. Number one, simply take this stitching line and fold the fabric over so that the stitching lines are now together, and then stitch across this way to just hold that dart in place, but what you've done is created a bit of a pleat. So now your fabric is flowing and fuller up here to accommodate for that fullness above your waistline. Another option that you can do is draw a concave dart, and I've actually penciled that in, but this is what a concave dart would look like. And I'll do this in a brighter color so that you can see it. So you'd actually be stitching the dart in a caved or concaved shape like this. And you can see what happens is it's coming in to the appropriate waist dimension. Actually, I missed right there, but that's what it would look like. And then you're adding this extra space right here for this fullness that you have around in your midriff area. So those are two ways to deal with the pattern. But the reality is that you likely won't be wearing a truly fitted garment in your finished fashion clothes. So what I'd like to do in this presentation is go over some style ideas that are generally acceptable guidelines for when you do have this fuller midriff or the muffin top. And one of the things that fashion kind of dictates is that when you wear pants, your pants should have a higher rise rather than a lower rise. And why is that? Well, the lower your rise on your pants, the more you're going to spill out over top. And so always consider wearing higher pants. And then if you want to tuck a blouse in, make sure that your blouse has enough fullness in it so that you can pull a little bit up and let a little blousing happen over top of your waistline. Another consideration that you might want to take in mind is to put on a pretty wide belt. A wider belt is going to help to contain the fullness above your waistline. This is a new fashion leaflet, an accessory leaflet that I've just designed and put up in Digital eGoods, and it is a wrap belt that's done with Velcro, and so you can make it kind of adjustable sizing with the Velcro on the inside. It's really a fun belt to wear. But now let's talk about some different tops. When we look at tops, and again, what you wear, of course, is up to you. It's totally your choice how you want to wear your clothing. But the generally accepted guidelines for when you have this fullness is don't wear clothing that is skin tight. So we'll take a look at some fashion tops in that I found on the internet, and what you're going to see is that they are looser fitting. There is a little bit of shaping at the waistline in a couple of them. One is a surplice style and the other has a little bit of elastic shearing down at the waist, but you can see that there's blousing coming up over top. Another alternative is to take your bust darts and move them into the neckline so that you've got beautiful flowing fabric over top of your bust line. But the garment is longer and it's going to cover up any waistline situation and fullness that you've got there. Now let's take a look at what SureFit Designs can do for you. And here's an illustration with 5 different tops on it that you can see that can be done with your SureFit Designs patterns. And I'm going to talk about each one of them individually. But what you will notice is that they do not have any kind of a waist-fitting dart in them. This dart just kind of like disappears. There's only one circumstance when I would use this dart, and that's for designing a princess line. And I will show you the actual garment that I'm talking about. Princess lines normally come out of the waistline and go up into the shoulder line or into the arm side. And this waist fitting dart here is used as a styling position so that we get that seam line of the princess line right underneath your apex, so you know it's going to be most flattering on you. And I've got all kinds of videos on working with designing a princess line. There's a whole playlist of princess line videos. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these individual garments. The first one is this cap sleeve top. And we've got a pretty little cap sleeve. You've got a single pleat at the top. And what you're seeing here is a blouson style. And I've put a little band on it as well. Now, again, as I said, this is one of those digital downloadable fashion leaflets. And here we've got a real pretty princess line reversible vest. And as I said before, this design line or this dart is used for the design line only. You do not need to shape on either side, which of course would really nip this in at your waist. And there's instructions in your dress kit instruction book that tell you how to design and create the princess line. Another thing that you might want to consider is something like this, a color block top. And the benefit of this is, first of all, diagonal design lines are generally very, very flattering, and they take the eye away from that middle section and actually, in this case, moves it upward. But interesting design lines are always going to be a good option for you. And again, you'll notice that this is relatively long. It's going to hang over your waist and give you fullness in that waistline area, and yet still fit you properly in the neckline, shoulders, and sleeves. Another one that you're going to find in SureFit Designs is this copycat tunic. And here you'll see that the bust fitting dart has been transferred down into the lower side seam, but that waist fitting dart, it's just completely not sewn. The fullness is there for it, but you just let it release and the garment will hang nicely over top of your waistline and high hip and low hip area. Another design that is done, this one is particularly done from the shirt kit, and here you can see asymmetrical pleating going up into the left shoulder. Again, the whole effect is that the eye is transported upward, and so that's where the viewer's eye goes. I do have a hip band on here, but it's long enough to go over top of the waist and give fullness in that midriff area. Something else that I want you to consider is your fabric choice. Here I have two identical cowl neck blouses. This one is done out of a fabric that really clings. It's very, very thin fabric. And this blouse is done out of a little bit heavier fabric. So the heavier the fabric, the less, of course, that it's going to cling to your contours. And of course, with these cowl neck blouses, they're long enough to go over the waist and drop down into your hip area. I've got a number of different garments here that you can choose from and styles that you can choose from. But one more that I would like to talk about is this pretty little dress right here. And here, this is an example where the bust fitting dart has gone down into the waist fitting dart, and I've added 1 inch extra in length in the torso of the bodice. And now when that elastic sits at my waistline, you get blousing over top of the midriff area. This is actually from the 4-page fashion design sheet. It's a really cute little dress. And of course, the top that I've got on, this is the high-low hem swing top, kind of a handkerchief style of hem. It's great to wear over top of leggings or really skinny pants. And where you'll find the directions for this one is on page 38 of the dress kit instruction book. Well, that certainly gives you a lot of ideas of how to, number one, deal with the pattern when you have a muffin top, and what kinds of garments are generally acceptable, fashion garments are generally acceptable in ready-to-wear in terms of helping to camouflage that little extra roll that you might have in your midriff area. I do hope you've enjoyed this information, and I would invite you to join the SureFit Designs community if you haven't already. You can do that in 3 easy steps. Number 1, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and underneath this video you'll see a like button and a place to add comments. I love reading your comments. Number 2, make sure to go on over to surefitdesigns.com and sign up for the newsletter. And you'll find that sign-up form at the bottom of almost every single page. And when you do, there's a number of getting started gifts for you. And thirdly, we now have a Facebook group page where people from all over the world are sharing their project ideas, asking questions, helping one another, and sharing photographs of their finished SureFit Designs garments. I really do invite you to join our community. I know you'll fit right in.